Hey guys, welcome back. So in today's video, we're working with circular linked list again, but this time what we're going to be doing, we're going to be coding up the insert function for circular linked list. And so it's pretty self-explanatory. All we want to do is, if we have a circular linked list called with the nodes A, B, C, D that loop through each other, what we want to do is we want to pass in a previous data and our data of the new node, and we want to insert our new node after our previous data. And so say we call our insert function here, we want to insert a node that has a data value of E after our node that has a data value of B. So our resulting list should look like this: A, B, E, C, D. And remember, the D is going to be pointing back to the head, and so that's going to point back to the A again, E, and so forth. And so that is what we want to try to achieve in the this insert function. And if you guys want, pause the video and try it on your own. But if you guys have any trouble, definitely come back and we'll work through it together. And so hopefully you've done that by now. The first thing we want to do is I'm going to create a new node with a new node with our node class and pass in the data element. And I'm going to first handle for if our list is empty. So we're going to say if not self.head. We'll just make our self.head equal to the new node, and then we'll say our new node dot next is equal to the new node, and then we'll just return. And so that is just going to be for handling for our for an empty list. Now this is the actual part where we want to insert. And so what we want to do, we want to keep track of two variables. One variable is going to be called prev, which we'll set to none, and our next variable will be called cur, which will be the self.head. And so what we want to do is, if we have these two variables, our prev in this case, when we first start off, our prev will be none, and then our cur will be the A node. And so what we want to do, we want to keep looping through until we get to a point where our previous node is the data element of our prev node is equal to the prev data that we passed. And so what we want to do in this case is, if we want to insert an E after the B, what we want to do is we start off at prev is equal to none and the cur is equal to A. And so we want to check if our prev is equal to the prev data. It's not, so we loop through. So we make prev is going to be equal to none, so that the prev is A, and then our cur is going to move over one spot, and so our cur will be B then. And so now we check again, since our prev will be A and our cur will be B, we want to check if our prev node is the data element of our prev node is equal to the prev data that we passed. And if it's not, we want to loop through it again. And so since it's not, in this case we're going to loop through again, and then our B is going to move, our prev node will move over once, and then our cur node will move over once. And so now we check our data, our prev node, the data element of our prev node is B, which is going to be equal to the prev data that we passed as a parameter. And so here we are going to stop the while loop, and what we want to do is we just want to reroute these arrows. And so we just want to say, instead of the B pointing to the C, we're going to have the prev node, or the B node, point to our new node, and then our new node is going to point to our C. And one thing we're also going to want to check is to make sure we don't keep looping through our list, because if we keep looping through, that means the previous data that was passed as a parameter doesn't exist, and so we'll handle for that also. And so the way we're going to know that is if we have if this is our list and we get to the last node, and our prev variable is our last node, if the data element of this last node is not equal to the prev data, our cur is going to go over to the next spot, which in this case would be the A. And if our cur becomes a self.head again, then we know that we've looped through everything and we never found the prev node, and so we're gonna stop the while loop there. And so hopefully that made sense. I think it'll make more sense if we code it out. So first we're going to say while cur, we're going to say prev is equal to cur, and cur is equal to cur dot next. And so what this is doing is we're looping our prev and cur over to the next node so that we can check our prev node. And so we're going to say that if prev.data is equal to the prev data, so this is the data element of our prev node, this is the parameter that we passed. If that's true, we are going to break out of the while loop, and or actually we can just handle for it here. What we want to do is that we want to say our prev.next will be equal to our new node. So our B should point towards the new node that we created, which is right here. Our new node dot next should point to the cur node, and then we can just return right there. And so in these two lines of codes, we have told what our previous node, we have told that our previous node should point to our new node, and then our new node will point to the cur node. And if that's not the case, we are going to, we're also going to check if cur is equal to the self.head. And so when we go around the first iteration, we're moving our cur over to the node after our head node. And so this won't, if statement won't return true in the first iteration. But if we loop around and we say we get to our prev is the last node, like we were saying before, and if our prev data, if the parameter is not equal to the data element in this last node, that means we never ran this code right here, and that means we've gone to a point where our cur is the self.head, because remember when we moved our prev over one, we're also moving our cur over, and so our cur is going to be the self.head. And so if that's the case, we're just going to print prev data past doesn't exist. Actually, I should probably do this. Doesn't exist in the list, and then we'll just return. And so that should be the end of our insert function, if I can save it. So right now I have coded up Python cll.py. I have appended ABCD to our circular list, and so if we run that, we get ABCD. And so hopefully if we uncomment this and we run our code, hopefully we'll see an E after our B node. And so let's run it to check. And so indeed we do. We see A, B, E, C, D. And so a quick recap of how that happened. We started off with this list right here, and we set our prev is equal to none, and our cur was equal to this A node. And in our first iteration, right over here in these two, we said our prev is going to be equal to the A, and then our cur is going to be equal to the B, and we checked if our prev node, the A, is equal to the prev data that was passed. It wasn't, and so this code never ran, and our cur was not the self.head, and so we went back up and we looped through again. And so now our prev was equal to the B and our cur was equal to the C. In this case, our prev was equal to the data element of our prev node was equal to the prev data parameter that was passed. And so we ran these three lines of codes. We just said that our B node should point to the new node that we created, and then our new node will point to the cur node, which originally came after our prev node. And so we just inserted it right there. And so if I say I do insert A for the head of the list, this should also run. We get A, E, B, C, D. And so that in that case, our prev was equal to, we moved our prev over, so our prev was equal to the A. And right on the first iteration, we ran this if statement because it returned true. And because of that, we just rerouted our arrows and then we returned. And so that was the end of that function. And so just to confirm that these lines work, I'm just gonna put Z, which obviously doesn't exist in the list. And so if I run that, I get prev data past doesn't exist. Prev data past doesn't exist in the list, because what happened was we looped through everything and we got to a point where our prev node, our prev data was the D, and then our cur node was the A again. And so we ran this, we tried to run this if statement, and we checked if the prev data was equal to the data element within this last node. It wasn't, so we never ran this. And by the time this happened, or after this happens, we checked if our cur was equal to self.head, and since we looped through everything and we never got to an instance where our prev, the data element of our prev node was equal to the prev data that was passed, we got to our cur was equal to the self.head because we looped through. And since that's the case, we just print it out and we returned. And so that is the insert function for circular linked list. Hopefully that helps you guys, and see you guys in the next video. All right, later.